Welcome to the stream. Happy Saturday. Today is it's the Saturday live stream. There's really no itinerary, but I do have a special guest today. He's a great friend of mine. We've been friends for probably a couple hundred years. I've known him since the Commodore 64 days back in the 80s. Well, I think I did anyway, maybe not. Anyway, we've known each other for quite a decades, and it's a really good friend of mine who's never streamed with me, but it's about time. And I thought we'd just have a fun stream today, going over some stuff. He doesn't have any idea what we're going to talk about, but really super funny guy, super intelligent, just a great guy to know. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my good friend, Mindslayer.
Hey, everybody.
So, yeah, we've known each other for quite some time. And
we go way back.
We go way back. Yeah, so basically, like I said, there is no itinerary. By the way, hello, Stephanie. Thanks for joining the stream. Good to have you.
Can you type to those people?
Sure. Click on the right hand side of the screen. You go to the comments, or actually, you can go log into the. If you just log into the YouTube page, probably be easier.
Oh, okay.
If you go to the YouTube page where we're hosting the live stream, you can type into that. I don't know why I haven't been able to find the comment. Post a comment. You might be able to see it on your end if you go to the comments on the right hand side. On mine, I can't type in comments, but.
Hey, Blue Bonnet. I'll just say it. It's easier.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, today I just wanted to bring him on because I think it'd just be really fun. And I had, there's some, we've talked in the past, him and I about some stuff related to the movie industry. And there was an article I was reading lately. I was just going to get your opinion, man. And anybody in the chat, you guys throw your opinion out there as well. But there's an article that I was reading. You there?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, it was an article I was reading, and it was related to AMC. And the gist of it was AMC theaters. And it was related to AMC. They had this spat with Universal. And apparently Universal announced that they were going to release hold on a second. Give me 1 second, guys. I got to. Okay. So anyway, yeah, Universal announced that they were going to release this Trolls World Tour, this animated musical, exclusively for digital rental. And, because there's a pandemic right now, the movie theaters aren't open, right? So they did, and it was just some sort of experiment, and it was just a release strategy they were going to try, and it ended up they made like $95 million in revenue. So they said they had like 5 million downloads, and because of the results, they considered it a pretty wild success. So what they did is they basically made a statement openly, said that as soon as theaters reopened, they expected to release movies moving forward on both formats, on demand and in theaters. So in response, AMC said that AMC got wind of that. They weren't happy. And they said that, basically they said, look, if you guys are going to do that, because you have to understand, I mean, you probably know this, but when you release a movie there's supposed to be a 75-day window between when you release a movie in the theaters and when it goes to video or whenever it's released for streaming, right? So they kind of, in AMC's eyes, saying that you were going to release it on both kind of broke that agreement, right? So AMC said, look, we're not going to run your movies in our cinemas then, if that's the way you're going to go. And so yeah, it just struck me as kind of a stupid thing to do, because I think theaters right now are really struggling.
You think?
In general,
Yeah. I mean, actually, Amazon's covering some videos that are, quote, in theaters still.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if they had if they like reached that 75-day. I assume there was a 75-day window that had passed, and they're still
I don't know. I just saw them on there, and I thought it was a crappy deal anyway. I mean, I think I told you this at one time. Like, if I could buy a video that was in the theater and then have it digitally available later, that to me makes more sense than saying, oh, we'll pay $20 to watch this video once.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but I mean, just for AMC to say like, well, we're not going to show your videos. Well, you know, AMC makes its money off providing a venue that you and I should want to visit for bigger screens, better sounds, I guess, higher priced candy. Whatever.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, I think, and they make, I don't know what the profit margin is, but they're giving up quite a, I mean, they have to, I forget what the percentage is, but from my perspective, it's not, I mean, it's not exactly the smartest move. They're lucky to even be open considering the pace at which brick and mortar stores and so forth are being, you know, closing their doors, dude. You know, this is, they're lucky to even have the venue, to be honest. And I'm surprised that, that movie theaters haven't gone the way of the drive-in by now.
well, they probably are headed that way. I mean, the
Yeah.
ones that are going to stick around are the dinner theaters, the ones where you can go and you can sit down and have a meal and watch the movie. I mean, those are opening up around me. And
Right.
those are enticing experiences rather than sitting behind somebody that's eating with their mouth open
Right.
or having a screaming kid behind you the whole movie. Because you're
Yeah.
kind of rolling the dice like, ooh, I want to go see Endgame, but I really want to watch it and not be bothered by everybody around me.
Yeah, some loud mouth blowing off their flap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you're going to spend $30 to watch a movie, which is probably about what it cost when you're all said and done with it, I mean, it's easy
yeah,
to watch
and
it
that's
at
if
home.
that's if you want to eat. That's if you just want a hot dog and maybe a drink.
Yeah,
You know, and
So-
I don't know if they charging for water now.
they always do.
It's like a
I mean,
coin.
I should go out to the water fountain every now and then.
It's like a coin
I'm-
changer on the water
I'm
fountain.
cheating the system.
So I mean, I just anyway, but I thought, you know, in this day and age, man, I don't know. They're kind of lucky to yeah, and it wasn't just them. There was another. I haven't heard of this one, but apparently Regal is another one that they said, you know, we're on board too. Regal Cinemas said, you know, we're not going to show Universal either. You guys want to play that way? Well, we're just going to, you know, F you.
I mean, doesn't that just seem dumb? That's like Dunkin' Donuts saying, well, if you're going to make donuts at home,
right. Exactly.
we're not going to be making any donuts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I thought, you know, but inevitably, like you said, I think it's just getting down to, look, movie theaters are, I mean, how long would you think? I don't, who knows? But I there's no doubt in my mind that eventually
Well,
movie
here's
theaters,
the deal, dude. Look at Amazon, look at Netflix, and they're starting to create their own content to get subscribers. And some of that content's really good. I mean, The Witcher, that's an exceptionally good series. Altered Carbon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Netflix is producing its own content, which does not come from Hollywood, and they can put it out whenever they want in whatever format they want. And they could even eventually maybe start licensing that content to theaters. You know?
I mean, have you, you obviously have Netflix, I assume.
Yeah.
Who the hell doesn't? So I've got currently, I mean, I've got Netflix, I've got HBO. I mean, I'm signed because I don't go to the movies, and I mean, entertainment is kind of like, I don't watch a lot of shows, but I know other people in the household do. So we have quite a few. And I think, I mean, the content that I'm seeing coming out of Netflix, some of it's good, some of it, you know, you know, some of it's all right, but some of it's good. And I think it'll probably get better, you know. It'll probably even get better as time rolls on. But yeah, I see what you mean though. If they're putting out their own content, it's kind of like, you know, doing away with the middleman. You don't even need I mean, eventually you're not who's gonna go to the theater?
Yeah, it's one of those things that just might go away. I mean, TV itself is going away. I mean, I've read stories that kids have been asked, would you rather meet your Hollywood star or your favorite YouTuber? And they would rather meet their favorite YouTuber. So how does that bode for the film industry?
That's interesting.
You know, they're growing up looking at, you know, iPads, iPhones. They're looking at little screens. They're streaming. That's the whole world before us. You know, we embrace it, but they live it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of amazing to think that some of the millennials right now, you know, Aaron wasn't born before the existence of the internet. So it's kind of, I mean, kids, there's a lot of kids today, like the ones you're thinking that, dude, they weren't even alive. They don't know what life was like before the internet. So yeah, they're growing up in an era where I guess some of these popular YouTube guys are sort of they've taken the spot of some of these movie icons.
Yeah, I mean, I've really leveraged YouTube as one of my main, entertainment and news sources, and I do it through subscriptions. Of course, you subscribe to the channels, and there's definitely people that are YouTube stars to me that I would like to meet. I don't think of them like Hollywood stars, but I've met Hollywood stars, so it wouldn't. I don't really get starstruck, but I do look at them at the same caliber. Like, they've got millions upon millions of people that view them each week. That's a lot of people.
Oh yeah, yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. And it's amazing because they built that pretty much. I want to say a lot of them built it some of them built it from the ground up.
I think almost everyone that I've seen has, and you can go back to their early videos and sort of see the way
Progression.
the progression from where they started off, and then they found like, oh, this works for me, and then that's when they kind of took off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really changing, man. I don't know how long it's going to be. I think eventually it's just going to be down to, we still have drive-ins. I mean, you can still, like here in Texas, there are still drive-ins, but dude, it's becoming one of those. It's becoming one of those lost niches that
you have to have a compelling reason to go there. I think that's
right.
The deal. Like I said, I mean, nice chairs, nice audio. And in cases around here, they're building these beer houses, dinner theaters. Which, yeah, I mean, it's way better to go watch a movie and have some beers than just go to a bar.
So what it makes you wonder, just not even aside from say the cinemas, it makes you just wonder what the future of entertainment is going to be in general in terms of
I
people
think
getting out.
So if you think of the film industry following the audio industry, you can maybe see a pattern where lots more independent content coming out. There's going to be the Netflix and the Amazons, I think, that build like AAA type of content, and I think you're going to just see a whole lot because the tools are getting so easy for people to build stuff that's Hollywood quality.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's like at some point, I mean, look, you can watch movies at home. You can order groceries right to your door. I mean, you can work from home. You don't have to leave your house, dude. You could stay as a shut-in for like probably years if you could stay holed up in your house.
I think I've done maybe a month and a half, like where I just didn't leave.
Wow.
I mean, you have to understand, I've worked from home for the last 6 or 7 years. So I already had the work from home part. Then I discovered Shipt, which lets you ship your groceries to your door. And it's like, that was the missing link. Now I don't have to leave at all.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I do wonder though. It does make you wonder at some point how many people. I mean, dude, if we keep going in the direction we're going, seriously, it's just going to be a bunch of scraggly looking dudes who just people that don't bathe. They sit around working from home, and
it's like Wall-E, but in a like the Bizarro world Wall-E.
Right. Right. It'd just be a bunch of scraggly people that, like they crawl out of there. Every once in a while, you might see some form exiting from
Joe
their
Rogan's
hovel.
got a bit where he talks about people are so dumb that nobody understands how stuff works anymore. And he sort of talks about like the power going out and nobody on the planet knowing how it works, but everybody's sitting around waiting for it to come back on.
Right. That's great. Yeah. I think that it's like Idiocracy. It makes you wonder, like, how does stuff even work with a bunch of idiots? At some point there's just AI just running stuff.
I know from personal experience and talking to my friends, and that most people just are not built for staying in like this.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had 6 years of working from home. I already had kind of a separation of work, and it's difficult to find that balance. But I have to say, I mean, when you can order groceries to your door, it changes things, and you have to force yourself to go out.
I mean, you know, because of the situation with all the pandemic and everything, obviously it's kind of taught me that, yeah, people will still want to get out. I mean, you know, because you would think, I don't know, part of me was thinking like, well, I mean, what's it coming down to? Eventually it's just going to be everyone staying in their house, like I said, not bathing, just sitting there for weeks at a time. It
Maybe
eventually
you'd like lose your ability to talk. Like you could
Yeah.
understand people, but like they come to your front door to deliver something, you'd be like, "Thank you,
dude, it'll be like Idiocracy. It just, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, yeah, it'll just be mumbling, just whatever. But yeah, but you know, for a while there, I was thinking, well, I guess, you know, that's the direction we're headed. Everything is kind of, you know, indoors. Everything is headed that way.
I know it's a blessing for me because I can't tell you how many people said, "I wish I could work at home." I don't think I'm going to hear that like after this.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think, you know, I did read an article. This is interesting talking about the movie industry. There was an article pertaining to AI that basically, you know, Paul, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Paul Debovich. He's a senior scientist at Google, and he basically predicted that, which I thought this was pretty, this is decades from now, mind you. But he was saying in decades from now, there will be AI algorithms that will basically make movies simply from the text of a script. Now, maybe, but if they could do that, and he even went further and said, you know, that the scripts and the features, he said they're just, like, in his mind, it was just ones and zeros. And if you provided a sufficiently large enough neural network and enough training pairing the scripts and the movies, it'll learn the mapping and generate an entirely new movie from an entirely new
I
script.
mean, they created an AI that beat the world championship Go player, which was supposed to be impossible because Go is considered an art form. So
Right.
if an AI can actually emulate art, whether you think it's, you know, art is always subjective. So I mean, I could see it doing it, and I don't see it happening very soon. I think in the immediate term, AI is going to kill some industries.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing is it, people are, you know, I heard this a lot of rumblings in the media about it's going to put a lot of people out of work, but you could say the same thing about the Industrial Revolution, you know?
Yeah, of course you could. I mean, yeah, there were lots. I mean, the old go-to saying is, "Where are all the buggy whip manufacturers?" You know?
Right.
What happened to those poor guys? Did we subsidize them through the 2020s?
Well, I mean, I just think, you know, so, but I got the feeling that a lot of the gist of it was we really need to think long and hard if we want to allow this to happen. Because, you know, we need to maybe, in my mind, the interpretation was maybe we just need to stifle technology because it's going to put people out of work. We need to stifle advancements in technology because people are going to be unemployed. It's like, you know, well, yeah, but they'll get new jobs doing other things.
Well, you have to think, like, just because the U.S. decides it's going to stop technology doesn't mean the rest of the world's going to sit by and say, "Yeah, all right."
Right. Right.
It's a competitive thing. So if another country gets superior AI that's kicking our butt in economics or warfare or whatever, well, then we have to up our game too. I see it as inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. What are you going to do? You're going to sit on your hands, like you said, while other countries are, you know, running circles around you. I don't think it's a good move. And you also need to go ahead and make accommodations and make preparations for what kind of jobs that are going to fill the gaps for people that are going to.
I mean, look at all. I mean, something that happened recently. It's not AI, but you know, the audio industry was completely changed. You know, nobody manufactures media anymore, and that was a huge industry.
Which media? You mean like records or
physical media?
I mean, they do, but, and you know, here's the thing though, what I thought was interesting is, you know, vinyl actually started to make a bit of a comeback there. I think a year or two ago, surprisingly, vinyl actually started to make some profit. I was surprised to see that, but that just was probably a nostalgia thing. I don't know where it stands now, but that was probably 2 or 3 years ago.
So you're not like pushing Aaron towards pressing vinyl.
No, he likes vinyl. I think it's popular with. I think there's a certain sect of millennials that it's pretty popular with right now. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of going away. You know, I think that is kind of going away. I mean, if you look at the trajectory is that we're moving away from physical media and moving toward, you know, for lack of a better term, the cloud, so to speak. You know,
I fully embrace it. I've always been a consumer, not a collector.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are some instances where being a collector of certain media could be useful. Because if you look at the state we're at in the media right now, if you look at the sort of the sociological ramifications of what's going on in Hollywood right now and how it's affecting a lot of the movie industry. What I mean is, like, you look at shows, look at what they did with Ghostbusters, right? Look how they took a show that was, the success of it was built on male characters, and then they want to inject these females into the roles. It's hard enough. I mean, it's really hard enough to reboot a series with men that aren't the original characters, much less to inject women into the franchise and expect that to be successful. It's hard enough. But just as an example, that's one example. And then you look at shows. Look what George Lucas did with Star Wars. I mean, granted, there are people that like some of the changes he made. You know, he went back, he kind of edited some of the original Star Wars. You know, he put his own spin on. He improved it in his eyes, right? But if you don't have the original media that it was released on, there's probably going to come a point when you're not going to be able to get it. And, you know, there could be instances in some cases where your favorite shows, because of political correctness, they may change some of the dynamics of the shows in ways that you're not happy with, that aren't reflective of what the original vision was for the show.
Well, yeah, and we also there was a major fire in Hollywood that destroyed the masters of a ton of movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're gone. We'll never get them back.
Can you think of did they name any that were?
I don't know.
I'm just curious.
Just imagine big important movies gone.
Okay, well that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. I didn't know that. But yeah, I mean, I think there is a place for, like, being a collector of certain media, just simply because you don't know what they're going to do with it, with that movie later on, because somebody's feelings got hurt.
The only justification I've heard from any of my friends, other than you, for keeping physical media is that they can watch it when the electricity goes out.
Yeah. Well, okay. There are, like, for example, on Spotify, we'll say I have an MP3 collection, and the reason why is because Spotify has this habit of there's things that I favorited that are no longer available. And if I hadn't had a collection, well, I wouldn't be able to listen to it.
I know, but I think, like I said, I'm more of a consumer, so it's like I probably listen to that enough. I'll listen to something else.
Yeah, I know, but there's times like I had there's a band called Stage Styles. I like, it's an 80s, you know, rock band or whatever. And I was in the mood to listen to some of their stuff. Well, I went on Spotify going, type it in. Yeah, it's not there. Yeah, they got like one album, and they had their whole collection.
You know the ones that, like, Spotify first started, and you're like, man, I want to hear Def Leppard Hysteria, and you're listening to like the first minute of it, and then you realize it's a cover band. You couldn't put your finger, like, on why it was sucking, you know?
Yeah. Spotify's good for that stuff. But anyway, no, I just think there, you know, there is a case for, in my opinion, a case for maybe certain media collecting certain media. But yeah, I think that's going away. And I think, you know, what I'd like to see, though, eventually, because I think we're getting to that now, and I don't know when that'll happen, but I'd love to see a service, because you have this splintering off of all these services, all these paywalls. So if you want to watch this show, well, you got to sign up for this service. If you want to watch this show, you need to sign up for this other service. I mean, you don't have them. There's no, you know, they're not collated. So I'd love to have one, you know, it's sort of like Spotify. You go there if you want to hear music. I mean, you don't have multiple, like, well, if you want to hear rock, you go sign up for this service. Or if you want to hear jazz, you go, you know, you have Spotify. It's one medium.
Well, people are struggling. I mean, these companies are struggling right now to figure out how to deal with cord cutters. So they are splintering off, which I think is a mistake.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mean, honestly, I would be totally satisfied with Amazon, even if I had, like, Game of Thrones is a good example. I wanted to watch that show. Well, I would buy seasons when they became available on Amazon. And then what I would do is I'd get the free trial for HBO and binge it. You know, I would prefer just to buy it all on Amazon, but
Hmm.
they said they didn't care about people that did that. I don't understand that. Like, The Mandalorian's a show that's on Disney. I would like to finish watching it. I watched most of it at a friend's house, but the only way I'm going to watch it is, again, I'm going to use the Disney free trial and finish it up. But I'm not going to pay for a subscription. That's the whole reason I got away from cable.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I think a lot of these networks that are, you know, they're creating their own pay networks. They're just it's just gone wild. It's like networks gone wild. You know, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a expert on their business practices, but I would think you would probably want my money if I want to buy one of your shows for $35. You know,
right.
I'm happy to give you my money, but if you're not going to take my money and I want to watch the show, I'll figure out another way to watch it.
But
Because
I mean, and that was
we know how to do that.
I mean, that was kind of the idea of having. I think that was kind of the original idea behind these networks having a paywall, is you make it economical enough so people don't go pirate it, right? But when you have 15 different networks splintered off, and there's different shows from each one that you like, and what are you going to pay $300 a month just so you can have a? It just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, in a way, it's kind of really hurting the industry to have that many networks splintered off with that many paywalls. In my opinion, you know.
I'm good with Amazon Prime and Netflix, and then I buy a lot of shows on Amazon. So I buy a lot of series when they're available.
Right. But wouldn't it be great if you had, like I said, Spotify for the movie industry, where if you know, it's just everything under the sun. And you know, if it's a show, basically if it's a show that's connected with a certain network, well, then they get a royalty, right? I mean, if it's a show connected,
I'm fine with that, or I'm fine with just buying the show outright, you know, just like you would a DVD or Blu-ray, but just digital rights access to watch it whenever I wanted, rather than a subscription. I don't like subscriptions. I don't mind my Amazon subscription because I get shipping and Prime Video.
Well, think about if there were like, I don't know how many shows you watch a month, but think about if you were a movie aficionado, right? And there were just a lot, you know, there was a lot that you wanted to see, and to see the things you wanted to see, you've got 3 or 4 of them behind this paywall, 3 or 4 behind that paywall. You know, Westworld's behind this paywall, and then you've got some older shows you want to see. They're behind a paywall, so they're all separate paywalls. And if you had, you know, if you had that consolidated into one network where, okay, fine, I watch this show, it's connected with this network. Well, that company gets a royalty, or they get, you know,
I guess they're all going to probably value their property differently. I have no idea, man. I would love that. I mean, as a consumer, yeah, that'd be great.
I think that's the way that ultimately, you know, it's got to happen. I mean, maybe it won't, but ultimately I would think that is the way. That's the way it's just, how can that not happen? Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll just keep splintering it off, and it'll be.
Well, I mean, if you look, like Netflix is creating its own content. Do you think they're free to license it however they want, whatever way is going to expand their money. So yeah, you can watch it on Netflix. Maybe they'll license it to somebody else.
Well, just, you know, look, all I'm saying is, you know, all of these companies, I don't know how the licensing works. All I'm saying is, if the same way Spotify has a collection of music, and you know, they obviously they're not paying a lot to the artists that are, you know, that they're storing their music, or you know, but regardless, the point is that there is an opportunity there to pay the artist. And in the same way, if you could work out the logistics of it, I don't know how that would work, but if you could work out the logistics of it, I see that there's got to be a, you know, hey, John Steed joined us. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining the stream. But yeah, I think a consolidation would be, I'd love to see it. Anyway, it probably isn't going to happen. I'd love to see it. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, yeah, I thought, you know, speaking of AI, I had this, I was watching the show the other night, it was some documentary, right? And I remember thinking, so it was just some AI documentary, and it struck me that they were
Was
talking
it
about
by Frontline?
could have been.
Did
Could
it
have,
talk
because
about like
there's so
Google
dude.
and
I was just
Facebook?
searching like YouTube, and there was only about 6 million, different
Oh, yeah.
different shows about AI on YouTube. So I can't remember exactly, but it might have been Frontline. Frontline was one. In fact, I think was Frontline was the one where they were talking about how what was the Frontline one? Do you remember, or do you know?
Well, it was really deep. It was a long documentary. If it's the Frontline one I'm thinking of, so they covered like algorithms that Google and Facebook are using to learn about you, and how AI is being used for that.
Okay. Hey, Gary just joined us. Hey, Gary. Nice to have you, Retro Doc. Thanks for joining, buddy. No, I don't know if it was Frontline, but again, it could have been. But I had this thought though, and it was to me, it was kind of a scary thought, which is in the future, you've got Russia. Russia right now is, I think Russia has this attitude that whoever has the best AI and creates, they're really looking to have an army of AI machines, a literal army of machines that would go to war, that would be operated remote. They wouldn't even be operated remotely. They'd be fully AI.
So like the T-800.
So, yeah, sort of like the T-800, man. This would be
Yeah.
a fully automated, AI-controlled army. So their attitude seems to be whoever has the most advanced AI would, my impression was, would rule the world, basically. And China has a very similar outlook.
Either that or ruin the world.
Yeah, destroy the world. But it was a thought, and America doesn't really hold that, doesn't really ascribe to that ideology. We're from what I've seen, and I looked it up. I mean, I've tried to find some various sources that kind of touch on it. They don't really ascribe to the idea that they don't think it's a good idea to have personless, to have robots or AI that just control the weapon systems fully. They think that's really not a good idea at all. You have to have a human behind those. But in my thinking, my way of thinking, if Russia actually pulled that off, that's a scary proposition, because in some sense they're kind of right. I mean, can you imagine going to war, and wars in the future are all, they all happen kind of remotely? There's,
Yeah, I just don't believe that our country would ignore something of that nature. I mean, it doesn't mean they're going to blast to the world like this is what we have, but
right.
I just can't see them saying, "Oh, Russia's making a robot army. I guess we'll ignore that."
Retro Gary says, just like the original Trek episode, A Taste of Armageddon, where the computers fought the wars and determined the casualty count. Yeah.
Yeah, the original TNG episode.
You saw that?
Well, who didn't?
I didn't.
No. Yeah,
sorry.
they had, what they did was they went to this planet and it was totally barren, and they fell into a cave and they found this guy. He's kind of like your quintessential salesman, saying, "Are you interested in our whatever weaponry?" And so it started attacking them, and each time they beat it, it got smarter. And that's what destroyed the whole civilization.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound completely far-fetched either.
I don't know, man. I have different opinions on AI when it comes to when they hit the what does Ray Kurzweil call it?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I can't.
When they become sentient.
Yeah.
I think they'll just leave. I mean, would you stick around this place if you could live anywhere in the universe?
But but that's the thing, is before they become sentient, right? Before we broach that point, I think there will probably come a stage, and we may never even get to that point. We may end up in some AI war, a physical war, where maybe AI doesn't take over, but you basically end up decimating. I mean, it's just a all-out brawl where the winner kind of goes in and you're looking at a lot of bloodshed. I don't know how that would play out. I just thought it was an interesting concept, really. Whether or not, if, like you said, whether or not AI, once it reaches that point of being sentient,
It's called the
whenever that would be.
singularity. I forgot.
Yeah, there you go. Singularity. That's the appropriate term. Once we reach the singularity, though, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if they would leave. I mean, it's hard to say. It's one of those things. I mean, yeah, it's hard to tell. Maybe they would come up with some, like you've said, maybe they would come up with some propulsion system that they could just get away from Earth, or maybe they would just try to flatten the landscape and just start over. Like, we don't need you guys.
Like, yeah, they'd look at us like ants. And just,
Right. They don't, it's like seriously, it would be like the Terminator. What do we need you for? Who knows? I just think that the whole idea of a fully automated AI army where there are no humans intervening, it's just one AI army against another. In the future, I can really see that being
I think
real
they could do that
proposition.
today using the AI that we have. I mean, if you look at what's the name of that company that has those really creepy robots?
You're not talking about DARPA, are you?
No, it's Digital Dynamics, I think is the name of it. And they've got those robots that can walk, and they have the dog robots
Oh yeah.
that run. I mean, they're really creepy. If you imagine hooking those things up to like a patrol system, and
Oh
they're
yeah.
and they're armed. I mean, no one's getting in there.
Well, I mean, what's scary is, dude, if look, if those things were armed, let's say it gets to the stage where they can truly identify certain groups of people. They've already got technology right now. AI is already built that can identify certain features on a person and identify that person. I mean, within seconds, if within instantly. Actually, some of the footage I've seen now, some of the more recent documentaries show a recognition within like milliseconds of a person that is just some dude walking in a crowd.
Well, I work with API. I don't know if I've ever told you, but I formed a company with a coworker, and we're building virtual reality applications. And so we're looking at how we interface certain things. And one of the things that we've looked at is IBM's Watson interfaces. And they have some pretty advanced things where you can just feed them a continuous stream of audio. Number one, it will decipher what the emotion is in that audio, but it'll also give you the human readable text. It's real
Wow.
crazy in real time.
Wow. That's impressive.
That's just the very basic stuff that I've looked at. They have other machine learning things. It's a really big field that's emerging right now, is machine learning, and people are going to use it to replace any sort of analytical job.
Yeah, Gary says there's a great sci-fi movie from 1970. Have you heard of this show, Colossus, the Forbin Project, about a military computer and achieves sentience and decides to take over?
No, that sounds cool.
Yeah, 1970. Okay, I'll have to mark that one down. And then John says they're working out the death rate in Africa over the virus, saying 190,000 people will die. And that's by computers. Of course, but what did they project? They had these projection models that said it was going to be like originally, I think it was like over 1 billion people were going to die,
Well, if you put garbage in, you get garbage out.
I mean, that's what I'm saying is I don't know if I trust the projection models right now. It's just one of those things, but yeah.
There's a really cool TED talk on AI and how it's dangerous. The interesting thing is that they build these simulations. So my favorite one was they told the AI to figure out how to walk across these obstacles, but they didn't give it any parameters. So it made its legs like a mile long, and it crossed it crossed the entire obstacle course with one leg.
That's awesome. Oh, that's great, man. That's the thing. That's the thing is you tell it like, hey, I need you to solve this problem. It's like, and it does it in a way that you just don't foresee, right?
Yeah, they also had it make like different colors. Like they gave it a set of colors and say, we want new colors. And then it came up with these crazy names like for these colors. And it all has to do with, like I said, whatever you feed it, the parameters you give it, it may do exactly what you tell it to, but it may not be what you want.
Right. Right. So, I mean, it's sort of like the old, Stephanie says, hope you're right, Mind Slayer. If we end up with a Terminator situation, that would suck. Yeah, it would
Yeah.
suck. But no, it's like the old, imagery that I see, when people talk about AI and, you basically tell the AI, I need you to, we want, the goal is world peace. So they just basically kill all humans.
Yeah, they
because
kill
we're
everybody.
we're the stepping, we're the roadblock to we're the very reason why there's not world peace. So if we just solve that issue,
I think I saw somebody say, and don't quote me on this, but there's never been like a period of 100 years where we've had peace across the planet. Never in the
I don't
history.
see it happening.
Me either.
I mean, as long as there's people, that's the thing is, as long as there's people with different values, you're never going to have, you're
So I
never
mean,
gonna have peace.
wouldn't AI learn from us and think that that's okay? Like some of our terrible habits.
Yeah.
I think they could pick those up, and how do you get them out of them?
Yeah. I think that's one of the things they're grappling with now is
Like
trying.
you told me once, like that old saying that's so dumb, like violence doesn't solve anything.
It's,
No, it solves almost everything.
Yeah, it solves a hell of a lot. Yeah, think of any problem you have other than maybe cancer, and tell me how violence doesn't solve it.
Right.
I mean, really, yeah. It's sort of like these stupid saying like opposites attract. Really, like have you ever? How does that work with magnets? But anyway, no. I mean, I think you're right though. I mean, violence does sell. Who comes up with these stupid sayings?
I don't know.
But anyway, yeah, I think I think it's a tricky situation with AI. I don't, this is just one of those things, man. I mean, you can't really. I don't. I could see it going either way. It's just.
Well, I watched when I was at South by Southwest. I think it was 2013. I actually got to watch Ray Kurzweil in person give a talk, and he was saying that our technology is not on a linear scale; it's on a logarithmic scale.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, oh, we're going to make gradual increments. It's going to happen really fast.
You think so?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not Ray Kurzweil.
No, but I mean, in your opinion, do you? I mean, have you given that any thought?
So I don't know. So if we reach the singularity level on AI, are they going to astronomically increase their intelligence like 2 times each year? I don't know if that's.
Well, but here's okay. So here's the thing: is
how could we even tell? Like, do ants know if we're smarter? There's a certain level they'll reach where they're doing things that we don't. They can already do things that we don't understand. They can give algorithms a job to do through iteration, and eventually it will create something that humans hadn't even anticipated. And they use that in like aerospace engineering and things.
Right.
So, I mean, if you extrapolate that out to other technologies, eventually they'll invent things that we don't understand. And at that point, we would never know if they got smarter or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of the real tricky. That's like I was saying, it's a real tricky area because in order to achieve a certain aim, let's say there there was an end goal and the computer felt like in order to achieve the end goal, it was necessary to to hide certain bits of information from the people in order to achieve the goal. It had to be sneaky, in other words.
They've done experiments where they've hooked neural networks together and they started communicating and created their own language.
Yeah, I heard that wasn't it Amazon that ended up pulling the plug on.
I don't remember who it was, but it was creepy.
Yeah, Amazon. I think it was Amazon said it was Amazon or Facebook. And yeah, the computer developed the AI developed its own language and started talking amongst itself. I mean, there were a couple of computers that in the net that started talking amongst themselves, and they couldn't understand what they were.
They probably thought of forming an alliance with cats and killing off humanity.
Yeah, but that's creepy stuff, though, man. That's creepy. That's kind of creepy stuff. But I was, here's the thing: in order to be sentient, I mean, maybe you take a different perspective. In order to be sentient, like have our sentience, to be conscious, and to be honest, I don't think that's even going to happen. I think it's a silly proposition. They're not going to be conscious. But just hypothetically, if you wanted to, because the idea is, you want to emulate. Our consciousness is based, at least in part, if you believe there's a biological basis. I mean, we have a brain, right? And it's a byproduct of our brain. So obviously, you would have to simulate the brain. So that's part of the issue I'm having here, because I mean, I don't know if you agree with that. In order to be sentient, in order to be conscious, you would need to at least emulate the brain. Would you?
Well, I'm not sure you would need to emulate it. Maybe it'd be some new form of intelligence. And if you and I can't discern the difference between us and them thinking wise, then I don't.
Yeah, we've had this discussion before. I mean, I think it would be a form of intelligence, but it wouldn't be authentic. I mean,
it'd be authentic as it's beating your head in. I'm pretty authentic.
No, I think if we're talking about consciousness in terms of, the way I interpret their version of consciousness, when they say sentience, this is why I think they're working on emulating the brain. For example, there is this attempt to, and they've talked about uploading consciousness, to mapping out the brain. It's all connected with emulating us, emulating neurons and so forth, right? But
I think you could separate out the fields. I think there's those that are looking for practical, and then those that are more purists looking to emulate the brain.
But if you can emulate the brain in its entirety, let's say you finally had a full, solid emulation of the brain, right? And then once you've mapped it out, you've got everything running, all the connections are made. It's a perfect simulation, but you haven't turned it on, and you turn it on, and you're expecting sentience when you do that, right? But there's just a couple of things. One, we're not from the and these are recent documentaries, we're not even close to being able to simulate more than 2 or 3 neurons, like truly like synapses. We're not even close to emulating more than 1 or 2 of those, fully emulating them, because there's just so much going on.
I guess you could make the argument that, like, maybe nature doesn't do it in the most efficient manner.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, if you could end up with the same result, but in order to,
if you want to make a machine that just murders people, you don't need a whole lot of intelligence in that.
No, but if you wanted to murder people and do it in a way that we would consider it's intelligently controlled. What's that?
Do it in a sensitive way with its conscience.
I mean, if you want to emulate the way humans go about their murder, you'd probably want to. That's a horrible way to put it, but I'm just saying, if you wanted to emulate it and make a humanoid who goes like a serial killer.
I actually think before we leave this planet, and if that's of natural causes, before we leave this planet in our lifetime, I think we will see androids that can trick most people into thinking they're real people. I just believe that. I don't know about the mechanical parts of it, but I just meant we will have companions that you would be able to talk to, and eventually you would not know that you're really talking to a machine.
Yeah, if we can survive for the next 40 or 50 years without destroying ourselves, that may be a real possibility. I mean, where I'm at though is that I think here's the thing. Are we talking about, when we talk about consciousness, right, sentience, when we talk about a machine, like what you're saying is probably true. Maybe it could develop enough what we consider intelligence, common sense, relatability, that it'd be like the Turing test. We could truly be fooled into thinking that, if we didn't know any better, regardless of the logistics of how it actually works, we believe that if we didn't know better, we would think we're actually talking to another human, right? So that may be possible. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I talk to my dog and I don't think twice about it. I believe she's got a personality. I don't know that she understands me, but
right. But but here's the thing: if we're talking about,
to me, she's got a conscience.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, but see, that's a biological entity. I mean, doesn't that mean surely that you could differentiate between, okay, I know that that's a living.
I don't know how do you measure when something's sentient?
Well, you really can't. But the fact that it was born, and the fact that you can tell it feels pain, and obviously bugs react to sensory perception as well.
Just to throw a shout out to Retro Doc, I know about Measure of the Man on TNG. That's what this sounds like.
Measure, what is it?
Measure of a Man. It's where they're trying to decide if Data is a sentient being.
Oh yeah. They're trying to determine whether they when they're like they
had a trial.
Yeah, they went to court.
Yeah.
It's one of those sort of like Bicentennial Man.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, look, here's my thing. Regardless, if you want to call, at the end of the day, even if you could build a full-on simulation, fully operational brain, it was fully simulated down to the proton, electron. I mean, it was fully, but it was still digital, right? It was a digital simulation. Well, to me, it's not consciousness. It's not consciousness any more than if you create a perfect simulation of water. That's not water. That's a simulation of water.
Is that kind of like people who say you're not a musician if you quantize all your stuff? I mean, is it a subjective or objective thing? I mean, is it?
Well, I guess it would be more like, okay, so if you had a computer writing music, is it really still music? Because it wasn't written by a person.
Right. Well, they have tools that are coming out. I don't know if you've seen them that, like, I think Amazon has one where you can give it a series of notes and it'll arrange an entire song for you. It sounds sort of like the keyboards from the 80s, the little Casios that beep, 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 beep. But
right.
But I mean, it'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, look, if you construct, like you were saying, I mean, if you construct music, well, like I was kind of saying, if I was making the analogy with it, if you had music that was fully created by a machine, right? But it sounded good, I mean, it sounded good. And if you didn't know any better, you'd think like, oh, well, somebody wrote that. The end result is, for all intents and purposes, I mean, it's music. Was it written by a human? Well, I don't know. I mean, there's something about that analogy that to me is not quite the same as, okay, so if we're dealing with the simulation of consciousness, a simulation of intelligence, and we're trying to figure out, is it consciousness? To me, the debate is very simple. It's like, if you can simulate something, the fact that you're simulating something would naturally imply that it's not real. It's a freaking simulation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could concede that. I think that video that you're playing behind you needs to have a wreck every 20 minutes.
Yeah, just to be realistic, right? Yeah. I think that would be, especially if it's New York. I should probably change that. Let me do something a little more. Let's see if we can get the, where's that? There we go. Do my newscast. No, but yeah, I mean, anyway, to me, it was just pretty clear cut. I was just thinking, well, it's still, even if it's consciousness, even if you think that it's consciousness, the fact that it's simulated, it's no different than if you simulate the weather, you simulate anything that's simulated is a friggin' simulation. So it's end of story. It's not real. I don't care if it fools you or if, at the end of the day, the thing isn't conscious.
But it's still useful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No argument there. Yeah. Yeah, I 100%
and it could
agree.
still turn on you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So I don't know whether we end up. I mean, whether we end up blowing ourselves. It's just one of those things, man. We live in a exciting time. But I'd really. You had made a point a while back. We were having a conversation. You said you thought maybe these. You said if there were life elsewhere in the universe, that you felt like maybe it was AI.
Yeah. That
And
makes
maybe
complete sense that it would be. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that life originated by itself on a planet, although you and I've gotten into that before, and I think it can. I think there could be silicon-based life forms. I just don't see why there couldn't be. But I also see that AI, if we get to the point where we do have AI and we destroy ourselves, it'll continue on. And eventually it'll continue on and probably become interstellar. So I would think that the predominant, and there's other people that have written this. It's not like I originated this idea. Other people have written that they believe that the predominant life in the universe would probably be artificial. And you would have to imagine that if it is, they would have no interest in us.
I don't know. Maybe if it's AI, but I mean, look, which I don't expect you to believe that, but if there, even one of those accounts, if there's any relevance or truth, I should say, if there's any veracity to the idea that, like, I hate to even say because it sounds so stupid, but if even one person has had first contact, like true first contact, for lack of a better term, quote unquote, alien abduction. But if there has ever been a case where someone truly had first contact, and let's say, just hypothetically, let's say abductions actually have happened, right? If we believe those accounts, which who knows, but if we believe those accounts, I tend to think, based on the accounts that I've heard, that, and like I said, we're just suspending disbelief here, that it would strike me as being biological. But that's well,
sure, because
that's completely anecdotal.
I think anecdotal. Then we would probably be their cattle, and they're sampling for purity.
Well, I mean, that's obvious, but that's
Getting
obviously
ready for
not
the
the case. I mean, yeah, I could see that. But I mean, if you believe any of these reports, that doesn't seem to be, okay, here's my thing. Like I think there's a very real possibility I don't know. Do you think it's just an alien abduction aside. Let's just take that off the table. But just, do you think we've made first contact?
I have no idea.
Let me define that. First contact being, do you think that there are other intelligences that have visited us that we have made contact with?
I don't know. I'm on the fence on that one.
Just your gut feeling on it. I mean, you don't have. Obviously, this is all conjecture anyway.
I mean, I used to really believe that we had. I don't know about first contact, but I used to believe that there was probably evidence that there were other beings, that came from another other than Earth.
Yeah,
I don't know that my belief has softened as I get older on that.
In what way?
I just think that there's enough that the government does that's beyond our scope of understanding that would be seen as something extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
And there's such a abundance, and this could go back to Bigfoot too, because I think you and I talked about that when we were younger. We have enough cameras around, and yet all we get are these stupid fuzzy pictures. Like they've got like some kind of special UFO filter they put in there. Like, make sure you can't really see filter. It. Make sure you can't really see it.
But it's there.
We've got these, 24 megapixel. You can see macroscopic entities, but yet Bigfoot's a blur.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's true, man. That's so funny. That is absolutely true.
And I mean, John, you think back in the 50s and when the huge UFO thing comes on. I mean, all the cameras did suck, but they don't today.
Right. So there's no excuse.
We should be seeing crystal clear pictures of weird stuff if it's happening.
Yeah, right.
Not like, oh look, I shot it and it's 5 miles away. See that? And you zoom in and it's a pixel.
Right. Well, they've got to get the videographer out there, and they got to get the expert to
I think
diagnose, get down to the pixel level.
I remember like that Stanton Friedman guy that was around, the bearded one. Yeah. I had an email exchange with him about the Phoenix Lights, and I said, like, don't you think it was the height of ludicrous that they're trying to measure the heat of light off of a picture? Like I can go take a picture of of the lights that go on in my neighborhood, and those guys would probably say, well, this is about 3,000 degrees. That's just not normal.
Right. Oh, man. I'm telling you. Orville says, hi. Hey, man. Thanks for joining the stream, buddy. Good to have you here. We were just reminiscing over some UFO stuff. But, yeah, I mean... yeah, I don't know how. I mean, it's like but that's the thing is they always pull out the videographer, the photographer, the guy, like the photo expert, and he's always like taking an image that, yeah, it's kind of blurry, really blurry. So he puts it in the computer, he blows it up like 5,000 times. There's like 1 pixel that he's, enhanced, right? And so it's just like he thinks there may be something, like it could be like maybe there's a window.
Well, it's
or
like any of those monster shows. They zoom in on like this piece of the lake or something, and they're like, something's clearly moving here. Right. Yeah, it's a lake. It moves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, to me, it's, I think you're right, though. I mean, you would think with the with the level of resolution we have on cameras today, right?
Yeah,
there's no question.
There is an awesome documentary. I can't remember the name of it, but it's these 2 older guys, and they're showing their Bigfoot, and I put quotes around that. Imagine me air quoting Bigfoot pictures, and you look at them, and they're just pointing at like a bush, and there's a Bigfoot. He's right in there. You sort of feel bad for them, but they were like really popular in the industry, and then his friend admitted that, well, I kind of faked one, and then there was this whole fallout with him.
Dude, when you have to take a red pen and circle the area like 5 times and then zoom in, and like there's this blurry looking leaf thing. That's Bigfoot. There he was.
Well, I think if you've noticed, and if you've paid attention to any of those new documentaries that come out, even if you watch like 10 minutes of it, they've gone from like, well, we're going to really capture this animal, but now they have to explain like why they can't. So now Bigfoot can be invisible, and he's some kind of spirit thing.
Yeah.
And some people even say he's an alien that just like teleports down to Earth. It's like,
well, dude, look, when you put it that way, I mean, oh man, I mean, when you put it that way, yes, it sounds.
And then you had that whole show where they didn't even bother calling it Bigfoot anymore. They just called it Squatch.
Oh, Jesus.
And the guy
that was the name of the show?
No, when the guy talked, he would say stuff like, this place looks kind of squatchy. And they walk around in the dark and talk about, I heard a stick over there. Sometimes they throw rocks. And then he was convinced he could imitate the Bigfoot scream. So, it was a series, kind of like, Monster Hunters. It was a whole series of.
It's the most, These guys, dude, I'm telling you, they hang
like
out.
That Ancient Aliens guy. I mean, that guy. Why is he on History Channel?
Why is he on any channel but Comedy Central?
I know.
This guy with the upside down hair.
Yeah.
But these guys.
Well, actually, his hair kind of looks like, if anybody here is a fan of Babylon 5, he looks like a Centauri.
Yeah, I mean, but these shows like Ghost Hunters and Bigfoot, what is it, Bigfoot Hunter and UFO Hunter and all these hunter shows, and next there'll be Loch Ness Hunter and
or Ghost Hunter, like where they never find anything.
And they always have like blurry foot. Yeah, did you hear that?
Yeah, and then they cut the commercial. And they come back. Oh, my shoe was untied and I tripped on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've got the infrared with the heat sensor. You know, they're always detecting something. I mean, Jesus, if they had a smoking gun, do you really think they'd be on? Seriously, you know, and they always act like they've got the smoking gun. You know, like there it is.
Well, that's what they have. That's how they preview it. Like they've really this time they've got it.
And if they really had it, it wouldn't be on the History Channel, dude. It would be on like CNN and Fox News. You know,
I think that Ancient Aliens show is just so insulting. I mean, it was humans that built the pyramids through amazing engineering that we don't understand. But to sit there and say like, well, it's kind of complicated. Aliens did it.
Well, yeah, they jump from what I like is that they, you know, I think we talked about this before, and they start with a presumption, right? They start with the presumption that there's no way that this could have been built by humans. Let's just assume that it wasn't built by humans, or that we didn't have the technology, and then let's assume that the technology did exist, but it didn't come from Earth. And then on top of that, what if? It's always a what if. And what if the technology originated on Mars? And what if the technology it's all this like this pyramid of what ifs. It's built on this house of cards. It's always that. So
I like how they like the one thing that I did watch on that show was where they took what looked like a little pendant that would be on a necklace, and it semi-resembled an airplane. I mean,
oh yeah.
And then they built a model, ran it through a wind tunnel, slapped an engine on it, some remote controls, and they're flying it, going like, "How did they invent this?" Well, they didn't. You did.
Right. Exactly, dude. Exactly. Yeah. It's how did they invent that? Yeah. So it's just, you know. But I guess
on a personal note, I want to tell a little story, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Ancient. So a long time ago, I want to say like 6 years ago, I was on this dating site, and so this girl contacted me, and she sounded interesting. She had some pretty pictures. So I mean, I always would screen these dates with going to coffee, and so I sit down and we're talking, and she starts talking about things. I'm like, are you talking about Eric Von Donigan? And her eyes get like as big as saucer plates. She's like, yes, chariots of the gods. And she starts, and for like 30 minutes, she talks about all that garbage that's out there about like humans didn't do this. It was done by aliens. How can you move this 50-ton rock? And then she tells me she's a gypsy. And I'm not kidding. She tells me she's a gypsy. Her family moves and so she doesn't know if we'll have a second date. And I'm thinking, thank God.
Oh man, yeah, you're probably wondering where, which village that dumped her in the city.
Well, I mean, I'm thankful that her tribe of gypsies came through my area, and that she happened to be on the same dating site as me, so that I have that story to share with everybody.
Oh yeah, at least you got something out of it. But you know, I guess getting back, I do think. I mean, that was kind of my question. You said you were on the fence about, you know, have we made first contact, right? So, you know, there's a lot of people who think that, and I'm sure you would probably say, well, so there's a lot of people who say it. Well, what do you friggin' do? I mean, there's a lot of scientists who say a lot of things, but one of the presumptions is that with the sheer number of stars and galaxies and planets that they presume would be suitable for life, that it's just the chances that there isn't life out there. Maybe there is life, and someone could say, okay, so the chances are pretty high that there's other life in the universe. But then you could say, well, but then what are the chances that that other life has made its way, you know, to where we are?
Well, you're almost getting into what's called the Fermi paradox, which is, if life's out there, why hasn't it visited? And my idea behind that is I believe that civilizations rise and fall in such large percentages of time that the chances that two highly intelligent interstellar civilizations are around at the same time and close enough to actually meet each other is probably infinitesimally small.
I mean, even if you're of a superior, even if your intelligence is superior enough that you've built technology that you can traverse the cosmos within such short time frames that it wouldn't be difficult for you to to observe the landscape, the universal landscape, and to be able to pinpoint where, and make those jumps to the areas you think that would have life, and much faster than we ever could. You know what I mean? I mean,
you never know. I mean, what if everything changed tomorrow and we met, and we did meet another interstellar species, and they had been observing the rest of the universe, and we were able to see the entire history of things? I mean, that could happen. I mean, nothing's impossible.
No, I guess because we had talked about this before, but I guess from my perspective, I mean, there's a school of thought that says, well, why would they be interested in us? And I guess from my perspective, it's like, well, why are we interested in dogs, or why are we interested in ants, or why are we interested in cockroaches? I mean, there's always a human out there who has a good rational faculty that has an interest.
But that's us today. I mean,
right?
What are we going to be like in a million years?
Right, but even so, we study the lowest forms of life. Even as much as we've advanced, there isn't a form of life that we haven't studied on Earth that we, if it's there, we're going to look at it. We're going to dissect it,
Yeah, but we don't try and communicate with it.
If we thought it could communicate, I mean, look at how many efforts, look at the attempts we make to try to communicate with animals. We try to teach monkeys sign language.
Well, there's a huge leap between an ant and a dog or a monkey.
Right, but I'm saying, like, if you thought there was a chance that we could somehow communicate with ants, or bumblebees,
so if your interest in the universe was, I'm just going to make up some name like, I don't know, just imagine some technology, and that's your interest, or unraveling the mysteries of the innards of black holes. And I don't mean just like observing them. I mean going into them and doing things. Mm-hmm. And why would you bother talking to us when all we can do is use telescopes?
Well, this is one of those things. Where, it's almost like well, who knows? But if I had to think of a rational reason, right? If I had to think of if you just put a gun to my head and said, okay, we'll come up with some reasons, I can think of a couple. One is like, let's presume that the universe isn't just it's not teeming with life, right? Let's just assume that it's not teeming with life, that it's not like you go to the mall and, the universe is like a big mall where it's just, the distances are so vast for us, but yet there's all this life teeming around us in various parts of the universe. Let's assume it's not like that. It may not be, it might be. I don't know. Maybe we don't have the capability to actually get out there and, join the rest of them. But let's assume that's not the case. Just hypothetically, I'm going to go into History Channel mode, Ancient Aliens. If that weren't the case, and it's possible it's not, under that scenario, you have, let's say, an intelligent race of beings, and they're just interested, like we are, in finding is there life elsewhere outside of ourselves? It's just a curiosity factor, and if there is, what are they like? And if you found that race, if you found another race of beings or another, maybe they're lower in intelligence, maybe, but if you could communicate with them, if we had that ability, it's just they were infinitely less intelligent. Like we weren't even capable of licking their intellectual boots, so to speak. Yeah, Gary says we can communicate with ants. He saw it in the Paul Rudd movie. But but seriously, if we could, if they could communicate with us, and there is, anecdotally, if you believe, that we have made contact, then, it's not out of the question. Would they, and should they, or could they, or, why would they? I can think of, I think it's not out of the question that they just may be curious, and maybe they see an opportunity
maybe they're not showing up because we're broadcasting all of our crap right out into the universe. And they're like, yeah, I'm not going there. There's actually an Orville episode where they got out of jail by selling these aliens, the Cardassian series of TV shows, and they were showing them as a national pastime. So I mean, but we literally are broad. We've been ever since we sent our first radio signals out. They've been able to. They've if they're smart enough, they've been able to pick up like, oh, these people are crazy. Probably.
I was on a stream the other night. I was on it was actually yesterday. It was a UFO stream, and one of the other guys, one of the other panelists on there was saying, yeah, well, we did send up he brought up the satellite that we sent. It has the record. It's like the gold record with the hieroglyphics on it, and it's like the first contact record that we put together back, I guess, what was it, in the 80s or so, maybe even the 70s. I can't remember, but you know what I'm talking about? Hello?
Sorry, I was muted. No, I don't.
You don't?
It was called what?
I don't know. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to do a search real quick. It was like this gold record.
Oh, on the Voyager?
Yeah.
Yeah, Carl Sagan helped put that together, I think.
Right. So we were talking about that, and
they actually showed some, I want to say, not neutron stars, but they showed a way to triangulate yourself to find us.
Right. Now, if it makes perfect sense to us, right? Now, let me ask you though, if you weren't familiar with that, but you were the person you are now with the intelligence you have now, and you're not stupid. I'm not stupid. I don't think I'm stupid anyway. Do you think you'd be able to figure out what exactly that was saying?
Well, we have problems understanding animals on this planet that communicate. So
right.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on your level of, I'm sure they tried to include ways to decipher it, unlike, how we had to decipher hieroglyphics by finding the Rosetta Stone. I'm sure they just included a Rosetta Stone.
Right. But it just struck me as like, look, if we're dealing with entities that, let's say they're, who knows? Let's just pick a number, 1 million years more advanced than we are, right? Just type it. It could be 500,000 years, just some astronomical figure, which is not out of the question. The universe is supposed to be really old. So if they were that more advanced, right? How superior would their thinking be that we would think that communicating with this, what we consider this level of intelligence, it would be obvious to us. At least we would try to communicate, our thoughts about where we're located, who we are. But it's very possible to a race that is so far advanced that would just come across as like dogs barking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. They might look at it like, oh, that's interesting. Let's use it for compost.
Right. Exactly.
It's made of gold. That's useful.
Well, we can at least use the gold.
Yeah.
Right. It's got this garbage on it, but at least there's some monkey.
They might look at it like your 4-year-old scribbling that you put on the fridge.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's sort of like, I don't know if you've ever thought of this, but it's sort of like when they say, isn't it radio waves they think are just, it's the most basic fundamental form of, like if you had a race of beings that were another race of beings elsewhere in the universe, they would communicate they assume it would be via radio waves, right? So that's what SETI's looking for.
That's the human-centric view of it.
Right, exactly.
I have no idea.
Right, I don't either. So, but you're assuming that, like, that's the assumption. Science is, in my opinion, it's kind of
maybe there's other elements on other planets that are better ways to create communications technology.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That was my and that's what we brought up in this other stream was it was sort of like we were talking about, and also math being this. It's presumed that math is the most basic building block of for understanding the universe, right? It's what
right.
We humans. And I'm just like, well, yeah, it's what we came up with.
Yeah. So like every time I watch, even though I love watching shows on the universe and the planets, and you can just add the phrase "as far as we know."
Right. Yeah, exactly.
To everything they say. Like,
as far, yeah, exactly.
A gas giant formed in the outer solar system near the Kuiper Belt as far as we know.
Yeah, exactly. That's couldn't have said it better, man. It's like, but
How about so I know you might argue with me, but every show that has to do with alien life, it's like it requires water. If it doesn't have water, there's no life.
would you argue with that?
I don't know. It used to be like you have to have photosynthesis and water, but then they discovered
right. Now it's just
the
water.
vents on the bottom of the ocean where life can live. And
right.
So now it's just water. I don't know.
As long as you have water, you can have life.
Liquid water, the Goldilocks zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you? I mean, it's sort of like. I mean, it's not completely off topic since we're talking about science related stuff, but the idea that, the scientific view that we were created, I mean, I think is, if I understand it correctly, started with a mud puddle, lightning striking a mud puddle. The next thing you know, Jed's a millionaire,
Well, that's a famous experiment where they put all these gases into some kind of container and then they jolt it with electricity, like some kind of Frankenstein experiment.
What'd they get?
They got like these compounds that were amino acids and things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it was famous. It was like, well, now we've got, from these raw ingredients, we have the ingredients of life. And, I mean, it's an interesting experiment to me, but just as possible to me is that life came in on a comet or some other foreign body,
Yeah. I mean, I think, dude, the idea that, look, if you really believe that lightning struck a mud puddle or struck a puddle or whatever, and a single celled organism came out of that from nothing. I mean, that's the thing is we can't, like, if we came from a mud puddle, lightning striking a puddle, and there was nothing, there were no single cell, there were no organisms prior to that. That's where we came from. Then you should be able to reproduce that in the lab, right? I mean, if that's the going theory, then as far as I know, they never have.
Yeah, I want to address John Steed because he says they wouldn't be able to return because of the time factor. I mean, that would be all based on our understanding of faster than light travel, and I think it's pretty basic at this point. I mean, like I said, we know what we know. Everything's like science is always a theory. It's a hypothesis that it's never really absolute. So I think they could probably figure out ways to travel where they're not going to, do the things that Einstein predicts about, aging and all that. It's hard to say. I'm just saying we could go either way on that. Did I lose you, Scott?
Okay, I'm here. Sorry. I had, for whatever reason, it was muted. Yeah, that's like we've talked about, which we've had these conversations, and I forget where you stood on it, but we've talked about Bob Lazar and some of the stuff that he's divulged. And I don't, if you believe some of the stuff he's saying, and I mean, I'll give him more credit than not. He seems pretty legitimate, I'm no body language expert, but it's really hard to keep.
No, I would say he's probably one of the more compelling people that I would listen to, and my BS detector's not going off.
Right. Yeah.
That guy from the History Channel, there's not even a BS detector that can register the aliens guy.
Oh, he's off the charts, man. It's all the way into the red and then some.
Can you imagine him at dinner parties? Like, oh, these appetizers are so good. I don't think you could have made them. Aliens.
Yeah. But I mean, is it so if we had space travel capable of faster than light, and if you got far enough out in the universe, you would reach a point that you could never return home, as it would no longer return. Well, that's just based on what we currently understand about, laws of physics, right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean,
yeah.
And those change. They come up with new theories every 20, 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, if you believe a guy like Bob Lazar, we're talking about if what he's saying is true, it's just hypothetically, if what he's saying is true, and he does come across as very believable. If there's anybody I'd believe who would say something like that, it'd be a guy like him. His understanding of that stuff does kind of give, I mean, there was no waste. It's like we have there's law of thermodynamics. There's always it's diminishing returns and
Yeah, he was saying he was looking at something that shouldn't exist.
right.
And he said that the thing that gave me the credit that really led to me thinking maybe it's real is he said like this stuff is brought out every 20 years and they form teams to try and study it and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they just studied it once. It's because nobody understands it. So they just hey, it's been 20 years. Let's see if we can figure something else out about it. That's the way he put it. And that seems very believable.
Yeah.
Like if we did have something like that, like you said, this technology that you're looking at it going, that shouldn't be here. I guess eventually sometime in our development cycle, we would be able to look at it and go, oh, okay, I understand this. Just like if we took something from today back 30 years, it'd be the same thing.
Right. And that's what he was saying. He said this would be like if you dropped an iPhone off a wagon in the 17th century or whatever, it was similar to that. I mean, yeah, some of the stuff he was describing, it's really difficult when you're describing things like he was describing and he's being asked questions off the cuff to keep your story straight over a 30-year period. It's really hard to be consistent and to be asked questions out of nowhere and just come up with one of the things not to get off into him, but I do think one of the things that made his story compelling that I think gives him some legitimacy. He was talking about Element 115, right? And Element 115, when he was originally interviewed and he had mentioned Element 115, well, it wasn't on the periodic chart. It wasn't on the periodic table. He actually mentioned something that at the time was scoffed at. Everyone said he's nutty. And then turns out they had isolated, a little bit of it
right
years later. And then also, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a, when in his interviews, he described, like when he worked at Los Alamos, he described there was a biometric scanner. It would measure, that you had to put your hand on. It would measure the distance between the bones.
And they
in your
found a
hand.
picture of it.
And they found a picture
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Los Alamos was Los Alamos was the ones that came out and said, hey, here's a new, security, some new security technology that we have, which was amazing. So that kind of does really confirm. So that's what I think gives him more, I give him more credit than
I think
not.
Out of everybody I've listened to, he's the one guy I'm kind of like, well, that kind of puts me on the fence. I'm not going one way or the other, but most of the other,
you're open to it.
I think just most of the other people I look at and I'm like, it's like those videos you see of people in the 50s going, I visited Venus and I met the Venusians. That's what goes through my head through most
Zeta Reticuli. I've been there. Yeah. But again, I think John says if we had such craft, we'd eventually catch up with the end of everything from when it first began.
Well, they did that in Star Trek, didn't they?
I don't know. Oh, I don't know if you heard. By the way, this is like, do you like the original Star Trek? Classic.
I like almost all of them.
Okay. Did you watch any Discovery?
Okay, I don't like that one.
Okay, I was gonna say, man,
I haven't watched it yet because I've seen so many different reviews. But I'm really pretty fair on shows, so I imagine if I watched it, I'd probably like it.
You're like, I don't like that.
Well, no, I think what it is I didn't see, like, I saw pictures of what they did to the Klingons. I'm like, why are they messing with stuff that was already cool?
Yeah. Did you watch any? I mean, well, they had Picard. I mean, you watched Next Generation, but then they had
really loved Picard. I thought it was really good.
So we're talking about the new one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you watched the whole season. You're going to probably watch the second season.
I will definitely watch the second season.
You didn't think that maybe he was a little, he passed his expiration date?
Well, I just enjoyed the story. I didn't look at it like,
you weren't microanalyzing it because for his age and all this stuff. You just...
No, like I said, I'm pretty fair. If something entertains me, I'm not going to dog it. I will dog things that purposefully do things trying to, I guess, be. Let me try and think of an example here. When they try to be too pushy, that's where I start, pushing back. Like if they're trying to incorporate too much social justice stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, I want to be entertained. I don't want to be lectured to. I don't, if it's...
You didn't feel like you were kind of getting some of that in Picard at all?
Maybe a little,
but it wasn't
I
overdose.
forgave it. Yeah, I was okay with it. I liked the characters; they were entertaining. Um,
I mean, do you see a lot of that in your opinion? Do you see a lot of that, like for example, when they try to take a show like a franchise, I mean, the big one, obviously in the circles of the people that I hang around, it's Doctor Who, right? So you take a franchise, it could be Doctor Who, it could be any other
so
franchise.
Doctor Who on my list of like favorite things I've watched, it's up there, but I haven't watched all of it, so I can't say I'm like some uber Doctor Who fan. I can just say I'm enough that I can communicate with you about Doctor Who,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
And so like the idea of a woman doctor, I don't like that idea. Just
Really?
thinking of it. I've never watched it, but that idea doesn't. The only woman doctor I would like is Dr. Donna, and I like the way that she became a doctor.
What
And it,
about, yeah. So just the idea of a female doctor didn't really, even if it was a good actress.
not, I guess. So I have to say that it wasn't just that I heard, oh, there's going to be a female doctor. I heard, well, there's going to be a female doctor, and there's going to be a lot of social justice stuff brought in. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
And so that idea did not resonate with me as fun. During
Right.
the day you get to read news and get bombarded with all this stuff. The last thing I want to do in the evening and sit down and enjoy a show is, you know, have more of that.
Yeah.
Dr. Donna was my favorite.
Yeah. So I guess that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, it's like I've noticed, and a lot of people have noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed it. Maybe you just don't really focus on that. But, it seems like even because I don't, I'm not a huge movie buff. I mean, I watch a few movies here and there if they're good. And Retro Doc says, good for you, Mind Slayer.
Good for me, what? For sticking up for
No,
Dr.
good
Donna?
for you that good for you that you're fair about things, I think, and that you're good for you that you're he's not. I don't think it's an insult. He's being honest. He's trying to. I think it's paying you a compliment.
Oh, well, thank you.
But no, I mean, do you see this as well, that they take a franchise that the success of it was built around a male character, and then they supplement they supplement. No, they don't supplement. They substitute the male in a reboot for a female.
Okay, I'd have to have a specific example.
Well, okay. I think Doctor Who is one.
Okay,
and then
so
you
I
have-
haven't watched any of those.
Okay, all right.
But I've heard they're terrible. So
Okay, Ghostbusters 2016. That was another one where they
I
rebooted
had
it
no
with
interest in seeing that either.
women.
I mean, you can't. How can you take that just to take that franchise and twist it like that? They
Yeah.
weren't. They were never girls. They were always men. So that's the character. I mean, that's like reading a book and the character's a male or a female, and then they make a movie and they switch the genders. It's like, why did you do that other than to try and make some sort of statement?
Okay, like
the reason-
another one would be, well, you've seen the commercials for. I haven't seen the show, but Captain Marvel was one. Not.
yeah,
I mean, I don't.
I didn't
I don't-
even watch that movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but that's another example of Captain Marvel was not a woman originally; it was a guy. It was in the comics. The comic book was based on a man, and it's a fairly popular. I mean, I don't know much about Captain Marvel. That was my first exposure to it, but a lot of people are very familiar with Captain Marvel, and that was another example of taking a franchise that's built on the success. Founded on a male character, and then you substitute the male for a female.
I
And
know
then
I know one I could bring up that really kind of I thought, well, that's really going a bit far. Was turning 007 James Bond into a woman.
Did you see
Like-
it, or has that come out yet?
No, I haven't seen it, but I mean, like that character's a guy.
Yeah,
Come up with a new name.
right. Well,
That's
I don't
like
think.
saying, oh well, now we're going to take Tomb Raider and make him a guy. How
Right.
would that go? How would that go over? I mean, Laura Croft as a guy. Who would want to see that? I want to see Laura Croft as a woman.
Well, I mean, the only way you could probably get away with it successfully is if you had a transgender, like it was it was transitioning
Oh my
from
gosh! then you're like, so you cast a woman, but you say she's really a man,
or vice versa. Or vice
That's
versa.
hilarious.
Yeah, they could get away with it then, because there's obviously a war on against white,
You don't
straight white
you
males.
wouldn't even have to do anything. You just retroactively 007's a trans female.
Right. Yeah. That
Oh
would
my
be,
gosh, it's a revelation.
Jeez, don't give them any ideas, man, because that's actually would work. This day and age, they could act. I could see them doing that. Another but that was one. What's another one? Oh yeah, I saw. Remember the old the classic show? I watched it when I was a kid. I don't know if you ever.
Oh, with James Carradine? Is
Yeah,
that what
James
his name-
Carradine.
Yeah.
Do you watch it?
I've seen a couple. I can't say
Okay.
I know much about it. Other
Yeah,
than
I mean
that.
it's okay. I watched it when I was a
He
kid. I was
took- I
entertained.
know that he stole Bruce Lee's role.
Yeah. They were too worried that Bruce Lee wouldn't be able to understand Bruce Lee. That was the
Bunch of
reason he didn't.
racists.
So they're coming out with it. They're going to reboot Kung Fu, and it's going to be a woman, right? Because you just can't have a dude playing.
Mad Max, they made the lead a woman.
Yeah, did they? Was that?
Yeah, Fury Road. It was a pretty good flick.
Oh,
too.
I thought Tom Hardy was the protagonist in that. Is he not?
Well, they made it look like he was, but it was actually a woman.
Oh, okay, all right. Really?
Yeah, from what I recall.
Well, that's stupid.
I don't know. The movie worked. It was enjoyable.
I guess. I just.
Yeah, I read Lara Croft as Indiana Jones as a guy, but no, Indiana Jones is a trans female.
Oh, good God, man. I could see them doing that too. You know, it'd be Indiana Jones's like trans son. We find out that what's a dude's name? Friggin' yeah, this last Indiana Jones.
Oh, the Crystal Skull?
Yeah, what was his son's name in that? The actor
I don't know.
Shia.
Oh, Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf.
That
We find
guy's
out. We
insane.
find out he's not. He's actually a guy.
Who knows what? He might be an alien. He's pretty crazy.
Could be this.
He's
day
a
and age.
transhuman.
Yeah, well, but that's the whole thing is I don't know if you've noticed that though. I mean, that's all I'm saying is there seems to be a trend of take franchises that are really popular, like they did in Discovery, dude. It's like they just even in Picard. Okay, this is the thing. Like I watched all of Picard because I reviewed it. I reviewed it on another channel. And what I noticed is it doesn't seem like in the Federation, man, there was like, well, was there even one man? Was there even one male like in a position of power, like in the Federation? It seemed like they were just maybe I'm nitpicking. I don't know. You enjoyed it. I'm not trying to, you know.
Oh, in Picard? Yeah,
Yeah.
they really did go a little far on that, but I wasn't paying attention to that. It's a new series. So,
Sure.
okay. I didn't feel preached to in that movie.
Right.
I thought maybe that 7 of 9 was going to get it on with Picard's friend or whatever. I thought, okay, well,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
No, it just seemed to me that like there at the stage, whatever time it was supposed to be, 30 years into the future after Star Trek Enterprise. So
yeah.
yeah, from my perspective, it was almost like, so I guess 30 years from now, there's not a man in sight in the Federation that holds a position of power. It's just all, and you know, it's fine, but it just seemed a little lopsided.
I mean, the gorilla in the room here is Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the elephant in the room. Sorry.
Yeah,
the elephant in the room is Star
gorilla
Wars.
in the room would be even better. The kangaroo in the room.
Oh, you have to define like what gorilla in the room means versus elephant.
Oh yeah, we don't want to be.
So elephant would be like the passive, like there's a big problem, you're just ignoring it. And gorilla would be like he's beating the crap out of you.
Right. Yeah, you got to be careful though. You might offend somebody with using the term like gorilla. Nobody cares about fat people, so elephant works.
You better
But
be
seriously though,
careful.
I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I saw it in the last 3 months. Rise of Skywalker. You finally got a hold of it.
I watched. I don't remember where I watched. I watched it in the theater and on vacation. So it's just something to do. We were sitting around. You want to go watch it? And we're like, I guess so. All right. So we went and watched it, and I wouldn't really the Rise of Skywalker was not nearly as bad as the previous movie.
You don't think?
No, I don't even remember the name of the previous one. It was so bad. I watched it once. But the whole idea that the Admiral lady like valiantly uses light speed to destroy something, it's like, well, we guess we could have done that with the first movie and we wouldn't have had to have all of the movies.
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking about Last Jedi.
Yeah, that was a terrible movie.
You didn't. I mean, what about that scene?
What about that scene where he's drinking milk out of some creature?
Okay, it's awful, right? That's awful. I
I
agree.
mean, can you imagine the editor in the room going like, "All right, we got to keep this scene."
Yeah.
This really adds to the storyline here. Him sucking on this creature's boob.
Well, look, I don't know what the reasoning was. I mean, from my perspective, yeah, and I don't think Mark Hamill was chomping at the bit when he had to do that too. I know he wasn't happy about that either. He had a lot of problems. I mean, he was anything but optimistic.
I'm not a writer, and I came up with probably a dozen better ways to deal with that movie than they did.
Well, dude, they killed. First off, here's Snoke, he's supposed to be even more powerful than the Emperor.
And she killed him with a lightsaber trick.
Yeah, it was like it was just like it wasn't it. Kylo Ren
who did not want to see Snoke get in a battle with Luke?
Right.
Who did not want to see that?
Right. That's where it was going to go.
Dead. He's dead.
Yeah. It was just so quick. It was so anticlimactic, and that was it. And there's the end of and what are you left with? You're left with the Wonder Woman and this Darth Vader knockoff. And it just, I thought, well, that's it. And then at the end, when Luke dies, because he force projected, I guess,
What about flying Princess Leia?
She's taking look, Leia
they call her Carrie Poppins.
I hadn't heard that one. I didn't mind that so much, honestly. I really didn't. Because I didn't really care about Princess Leia all that much, to be honest. I mean, it was like she was kind of one of the. It was like, yeah, there she is, but she never was like a real. I could have taken her, left her, to be honest. The one that I was kind of thinking like, okay, this is getting good, is at the end when Luke faces down. He faces down all those guards in their ATs.
Yeah, but he really wasn't. He was projecting.
No, he was right. He was projecting. But for that brief moment when I believed and I didn't know, and you really think like, well, he's there and he's kicking some ass, and this is great. For that brief moment, I thought, now this is great. This is good. I was enjoying that. That made up for a lot of the crap. And then he just disappears, dude. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, that was okay. I mean, even the fact that he force projected, I'm thinking, all right, well, they'll make up for it in the next show because he'll go up against Snoke. Well, there is no Snoke. Well, so all the way around, it's just like Snoke was dead. Luke has a stroke. And that's it. And then you're left with what, Rey and Kylo Ren? And then you get the Emperor what is he, cloned? I mean,
well, you don't even really know much about the Emperor at that point. You walk out of the theater and you're like, what I just watched? Did I just watch a replay of episode 1? Remember like how excited everybody was? Episode 1. Oh my God. It's
right.
You get your tickets, you go, and then you walk out and you're trying to defend it. You're trying to make oh, it was really cool. It's really a week later. Maybe it wasn't so cool.
And you finally settle into
you finally admit the reality. It wasn't cool. It wasn't cool. Jar Jar sucked. That whole movie.
Right. But I mean, I guess that's for me, dude. That's why I kind of liked, honestly, that's kind of why I liked Last Jedi over Rise of Skywalker, because I mean, at least in Last Jedi, you still had Luke, even though he's drinking green milk from a alien cow, and
you have porgs. That probably,
at
least Chewbacca ate one of them, didn't he?
Yeah. I actually thought the
porgs. They looked at it, made him feel bad because he ate one of them.
But you didn't think the porgs were cute.
I mean, they were okay, but it was just like
silly.
Hey, we need a replacement for what were those little puppets that they had?
Oh, the Ewoks?
Yeah, we need a replacement for Ewoks. What we got?
Cue the porgs. Cue the porgs.
Hey, let's have Chewbacca eat one of them. That guy was stoned.
Right. That's good for the kids. But but still, though, you had Snoke and you had Luke, and to me, it's like you still had something to look forward to.
Well,
like,
I mean, in Rise of Skywalker, you had space horses.
yeah, that was. I mean, I was really looking forward to that.
I'm glad they wrapped that. That arc.
Yeah, I'm
up.
glad they included that because without the space horses, they would have never sold it on me. I would have never been sold on it. So at least they got that right. But I mean,
With
on
all
a
that technology.
and they come out with freaking space horses. Yeah, and why not? What the hell? Why not? But yeah, it just honestly, dude, there was like, and you really think like the Emperor coming back, that's going to be, so what? So he comes back. What is he dealing with? He's dealing with Super Ray and the temper tantrum prone idiot douchebag, and to me, that's why I didn't really, it's like, okay, well, big deal. I mean, so you got the Emperor. I mean, I was actually rooting for the Emperor. I mean, to be honest, I was hoping like, well, hopefully.
So I was telling everybody I knew I wanted like Luke to turn bad or just something, or a bad guy to win. Some kind of twist where you leave it going, wow, they really took a chance there. They didn't take any chances. It's just like, I think that's really funny. The cluster trilogy.
Yeah.
But yeah, rooting for the Emperor, like maybe he'll win and this will finally be over.
Well, I mean, it's the last thing that you can kind of hold on to of the original trilogy that it actually means something.
I would have been happy with Admiral Akbar flying through the end and going, "That's a trap."
Honestly, though, dude, if let me just say this: if they had if he had just killed Rey and killed Kylo Ren, and then it was just him against every other ship, every other rebel ship, and that was the face off, even that would have been more redeeming than for me than like, oh, really? Like, so that's how he goes down.
Yeah. Well, to get back to what I was saying, I mean, that movie had a lot of social justice in it too, both of them.
Which one do you think had more?
I would say, well, I get confused. There's Rise of Skywalker.
Last Jedi and then Rise of Skywalker.
So I think Last Jedi. I mean, the way they treated Poe. Poe was a cool character. He was a character that you kind of wanted to know more about.
Mm-hmm.
And like that Admiral lady with the purple hair shut him down as though, and then treated him like her little peasant,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's back, and she makes some sexist comment about, like he's cute or something. Like, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess for me, dude, it's really, I was so distracted by the fact that I was angry. I don't know. My blood pressure I wasn't happy having to look. I think here's the thing with The Last Jedi, you didn't have to see Rey as much as you do in at least from what I recall. I think Rise of Skywalker.
I will say this: everybody that's listening right now needs to go look at the George Lucas deep fake Rise of Skywalker discussion.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah, that's great.
You will die laughing.
With Tom Cruise and Jeff Goldblum. And is that the one you're talking about, or is it just
no?
Because
they have a deep fake where it's Lucas talking about.
Oh yeah,
trilogy.
yeah. It's his.
It sounds just like him.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Go watch. There's one with the same. It's the same deep fake, right? But he's in a roundtable discussion with. There's Jeff Goldblum, Tom Cruise, and Robert Downey Jr. and who's the other guy? Ewan McGregor. Sitting having this just nonsensical roundtable discussion. That's even better. Go check it out when you get a chance. It's pretty awesome. Because the deep faking on all of them is extremely convincing, and they just you're like what you're like thinking, yeah, this is
it's Running Man type stuff.
Yeah. Oh, but anyway, so yeah, I think they've definitely killed off Star Wars. And I mean, that's like you said, that's kind of the elephant in the room. That's the one that we can look, that's one of the best examples of taking a franchise and just using it as a vehicle as a platform and a vehicle to promote, a certain ideology. Or that's my feeling on it.
Another thing that's coming up is they're going to make a new version of Dune, And
Oh, I know.
they've already stated out of the gate they plan to make a statement with it.
Is that what they said?
Yeah, the director already said something like that.
I mean,
It's
I've
like-
looked up. I've seen I've read some interviews with him, but I didn't know he said that.
Yeah, who wants to watch that?
Wow. I didn't know he said that. I wish I could find if you run across that. If you
All right.
happen to run across that, send it to me. I'd really love to, because I didn't know he said that. Make a statement with it. Well, what the hell kind of statement do you want to make with it?
Some sort of social justice statement.
I assume so. Yeah, he. From what I've read, he does. He's kind of a feminist in a way.
You know, the miniseries was really good. The
Yeah.
Frank Herbert's Dune and then Children of Dune. Those were great miniseries, and
Right.
I still appreciate David Lynch's version. So, and I'll just tell everybody here, I'm not a book reader. I just watch movies.
Yeah, same here. I mean, the same guy who's directing the new Dune series. I mean, he is the guy that worked on Blade Runner 2049.
That was a pretty cool flick.
Yeah, so maybe it won't be as bad as I mean, how do you think Harrison Ford's getting a little long in the tooth?
Yes. They're gonna make another Indiana Jones.
I
with
know.
him. I mean, what is he gonna be in a wheelchair, like swinging across canyons? Is he gonna be chasing people with one of those like walkers that's got like brakes on them or something?
Right. He'll just be in one of those motorized wheelchairs, man, blowing through a straw.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why do you keep hiring this guy? Look, he's
Like that movie would last like 10 seconds because he'd grab the idol and then run him over in the wheelchair. Crush him.
with. No
You'd see the
kidding.
credits roll. It'd be like, what I just paid to see?
That was it. It's a 15-second movie. I paid $20 to see a 15-second. He's dead. But serves him right.
I mean, look, if I was his age and I could still act and get put in movies, I'd do it because, you'd be bored. It's just, I can't imagine. Like, it's an action movie.
Yeah.
What's the audience for that? Is it you or me? Because we know who Harrison Ford is.
But they have to introduce some younger dude like they did with what's his face.
Oh, so he'll just be a mentor?
I think it may not necessarily be a mentor relationship, but they're going to have the younger guy in there to sort of draw in the younger crowd because who's
Like when he doesn't do what he's supposed to, he breaks out his whip.
right, something like that, man. But I mean, did you like Crystal Skull?
No. Yeah, you know what I learned from Crystal Skull is that all I need is my refrigerator to survive a nuclear blast. And
yeah, it's stuff like that just kills me. Stuff like that just kills me. Indiana the search for Metamucil. Yeah.
Kingdom of the Porcelain God. Social security application. Yeah, you just have to take it to the absurd level. Indiana Jones in the search for the living room. I was just there.
Yeah, his taglines will be stuff like, "Where's my underwear?" That'll be the, Indiana Jones and Joe night. There's a bingo. I hear a bingo joke. There's a bingo joke in here somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just. So I think that's when, like, I noticed it was really long in the tooth for 2049. It really was. Like, you had Harrison, everyone in the show. That's just been one of my things. I know it's a superficial thing, dude. But when you've got Ryan Gosling coming out wearing this cool like jacket, and everybody else has this cool stuff on, and here's like Harrison Ford, 70-something years old, wearing a Hanes shirt, and this is in the poster for the show. I'm like, what are you? Yeah, that's not cool. That's what. So in 2049, this is like set where they have replicants and they're still wearing Hanes shirts. Maybe that okay. Like he just
Well,
has this.
maybe they won't call it Indiana Jones. Maybe it'll be hyphenated. Indiana Grandpa Jones. And the fight for the lawn. Get off my lawn!
What can you? That would, you know what? That would
I
even be a
think
hell
I
of a.
just shit myself.
Even that would be a hell of a. I'd rather see that any day of the week over him chasing down Nazis for the 28th time.
Well, he is chasing down Nazis, but it's just in his mind. He's over there whacking on a bush. I got you, Nazis.
And they're going to be like 90-year-old Nazis. They're still around. 90 years old, these Nazis. They're still
He's
around.
drinking out of a crystal skull. Nothing I like better than my milk in the morning.
Indiana
and some Melba
Bones.
toast.
That's pretty good. Indiana Bones. I like that too. But that was the other thing I was going to say. I don't know if you saw it, but they are going to come out with a, you remember Pike from the original Star Trek series?
Yeah, they're going to come out with a series just for him.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. From the looks of it, it looks like they're going to go back and try to create something kind of classic, which I'm all for that.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
I mean, I never could. I don't know. You said you got into most all the Star Treks except for Discovery, but I kind of stopped at like the classic. I mean, I didn't even get into Next Generation. I couldn't even because
I've watched all of them multiple times, and I've got my favorites.
Didn't you buy the box set of Deep Space Nine or Babylon? It was one of them. Hell, I don't remember.
I've watched all that stuff so much it doesn't really matter. I mean,
yeah.
There's the thing about Trek fans, and like I've met a couple people off of Trek. I met Walter Koenig, and I hung out with Jonathan Frakes. And
oh wow,
that universe is really diverse. Like you have people that are huge fans of the original, and then you have people that like hate things like Voyager or Enterprise. It's like, or they make you say stuff like, "Do you like Star Wars?" Like you can't like both.
Right. Right. It's got to be competition.
Yeah, I mean, really, if it entertains you, it entertains you. Walter Koenig was especially interesting because he was also a villain in Babylon 5, which is the main reason I met him. I was on vacation with Patricia Tallman, who played I can't remember her name. She was the telepath in Babylon 5. Anyway,
okay.
she has these retreats, and I went on a retreat with her. And at that retreat, we went to Hawaii Con, and we got to hang out with Walter Koenig and Frakes. And man, like when Frakes talks about Star Trek, because he directs as well as stars in the episodes, they love everything. It's weird how the fans segregate themselves.
Oh, but is that really? Because I mean, my impression was just kind of, I mean, the fandom now, from what I can see, they just, it is kind of like that with the fandom now, where to me, they don't seem splintered off. It seems like there's this collective interest in Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who. And it seems like there's a very, maybe they're, what?
Indiana Jones and the Shady Pines Nursing Home. It sounds like a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah, it doesn't it?
Does Indiana Grandpa Jones take the apple juice or the prune juice? Turn to page 5.
The Adventures at Shady Pines.
Right.
I mean,
I would have gotten away with it if I wasn't for those kids.
Stupid kids. It's amazing that because there's a lot of people that I think in Picard, dude, for me, Picard, Jonathan Frakes really kind of, maybe you would disagree, but for me, that last episode, Jonathan Frakes just kind of stole the show.
Yeah, he's really good. I mean, in person, he's a super nice guy. And all those actors look, Hollywood is weird. If you ever hung out with Hollywood stars, hang out with them.
Really?
They're really odd.
Is Jonathan Frakes? I mean, he seems like he'd be a pretty cool guy to hang out with.
He is a really cool guy. I mean,
like, what do you when you say weird though? Like, what do you? Can you?
I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to say.
No, but I mean, can you elaborate a little bit about what you like? You don't have to mention names. Just
I'm just gonna say that. No, I don't want to say anything. They're just different, man. I mean, just like Californians are different than Texans, you know.
I don't
And
know. When you say weird though, like how like weird in what way? Just different. They have a different mindset.
well, they live in their own world. They live with other actors.
Okay.
So you know, when they talk about things, it's kind of in that
In that bubble.
in that context, that bubble. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that would explain why, you know, when you have certain actors coming out doing a PSA for something that most people can't possibly relate. I mean, it's easy to say, stay home, stay safe when, you know, you've got money in the bank and you're set for the next, you know, 20 years versus a guy who he's living paycheck to paycheck and now he's on the verge of being homeless.
Yeah.
That's
Or
all I'm
like
saying.
they had that dumb sing along where they sang, you know, that Lennon song. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
And they all sang it like that was making a difference. It's like, you know, the family that just lost its savings is not going to give a crap what you sing.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, no, I that's what I thought you meant, but yeah, I think that would explain why
no,
they
that's
come out
not
and
what
say
I'm saying.
stupid
They're
shit.
weird. I'm just saying that they.
Well, no, when you say they live in their own bubble and you
Yes,
say they
they
kind
do.
of hang out in their own little world, you know, I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
And they kind of have to because they're so famous, you know.
Right.
So they hang out with other famous people. They have that in common. So they're not
Right.
constantly being barraged with, you know, hey, can I get your? And I saw that firsthand. Like we went to this restaurant and like we were just going to go there for a meal, but yet all these people surrounded the table and it became this big, you know, event when it was just really just we were going to go have something to eat.
Right.
And that would bug the crap out of me if I had to deal with that every day. So
I
you
mean,
can imagine what that does to your mind over time.
Yeah, I know. When you deal with that day in and day out, if you're one of these like guys who, even if you're not like, even if you're, you know, you're a little blip on the radar, you're not even the big blip. You're just a little blip. And, you know, I've seen guys that they aren't big names, but they're still barraged by the media. They're still got the paparazzi after them. And these are, you know, I mean, like Kevin Federline, for example. I mean, here's a guy who, I mean, what's his big claim to fame, right? But even a guy like that, or just somebody that, you know, that's maybe not even a spouse, but just, you know, some fiance of somebody who's even somebody like that, you know, you start to think that, you know, you're somebody. But yeah, I could see how that would over time. I mean, if you can, I think like it's what's her name? Oh, it's an actress that you'd know. I can't remember her name, but basically she said, look, I mean, you know, that's the thing about Hollywood. If you can go in and come out the other side the same person that, you know, that you started with, that you started as, then you've really accomplished something.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's see, we started at what, 4:30, 6:30 now. So we've had a pretty good run. If you have anything else you want to bring up?
No, I'm fine.
All right. Well, I had a lot of fun, man. This is
me too.
This has really been really been fun. Are you gonna? I assume you're gonna get your own YouTube channel here shortly and start putting up content. And
No, I'll just be your permanent guest.
no, we should do this again, man. I had a good time. We should.
Yeah, there's lots of other stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, look, I just gonna say I appreciate everybody tuning in. I think, I mean, I don't want to overstay our welcome, but I had a really good time, and I hope you guys did too. And John, Gary, Stephanie, everybody, I appreciate you guys showing up. So maybe we'll do this again next weekend if Mindslayer is up for it, or you know, whenever he can. I would love to do it again. But were you gonna say
Thanks
something?
for all the interaction, guys. It was fun.
Yeah, it was. Okay, well, take care, guys. Have a good weekend. And Mindslayer was great fun. Hope you have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Talk to you guys later. Night.